Look at you, useless as a wife and worthless as a woman. Do you really think I'll drag you into my $200 million future? Get out of my sight. What if the man you loved and supported for years turned on you the moment he struck it rich? Those were the venomous words her husband spat the very next day after winning a massive contract. No gratitude for the years she held him up. No compassion for the woman who once fed his dreams. He cast her out like garbage, her wheelchair left stranded in the cold, her dignity crushed under his laughter. She sat there trembling, her body weak, her heart bleeding with every word replaying in her mind. To him, she was nothing but a broken shell, a burden too heavy for his new life. But fate has a way of turning mockery into mourning. Stick around to find out how this discarded wife rose from the ashes and left him begging on his knees. Months later, the same man who had thrown her to the streets returned crawling, begging at the feet of the woman he thought would never rise again. This is the story of a crippled wife discarded in cruelty and the twist that left him destroyed. And today it is being retold by me. Hello family, welcome back. Before we begin, I have a small but heartfelt request. Please subscribe. Your support is what keeps these stories alive. Every time you click that button, you're helping us share voices that would otherwise be forgotten and stories that deserve to be heard. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from. Because together, we are not just telling stories, we are keeping hope alive. It was a Monday morning when Vanessa Miller rolled herself into the kitchen, humming softly. Sunlight poured through the windows, painting golden lines across the marble counters. She loved this time of day, quiet, still, full of promise. The scent of fresh coffee filled the air, and the soft clicking of her wheels on the floor echoed in the silence. Derek wasn't up yet. He had a big meeting that afternoon, the one he'd been chasing for 3 years, a government contract worth $200 million. Vanessa had prayed over it every night for months, laying awake and staring at the ceiling while pain shot through her back. She glanced at the clock. 7:43 a.m. She poured his coffee just the way he liked it. 2 sugars, 1 cream, and set it on the counter. Then she went back to scrambling eggs. Her movements practiced and slow. Her legs didn't work, but her hands still did. And her heart still beating for a man who once called her his miracle. She didn't hear Derek come down until his deep voice filled the room. "Morning," he muttered, barely looking her way. Vanessa turned with a warm smile. "Your coffee is on the counter." He took a sip, nodded, and reached for his phone. "No kiss, no thank you." "You nervous?" she asked gently. He shrugged. "Why would I be? I've got this." Vanessa laughed lightly. "That's the spirit. You've worked hard for this, babe." Derek gave her a quick glance, but his eyes didn't linger. "Yeah, I did." The word stung just a little. She brushed it off. Maybe he was just stressed. "I've been thinking," she said, rolling closer. "If the deal comes through, maybe I could finally open that rehab center I told you about. You know, for women with injuries like mine. I've even found a few locations. Nothing crazy expensive." "Vanessa," Derek interrupted. "Let's not jump ahead." "All right. I'm just saying." "I said, not now." He put down his mug a little too hard. "Can we not make this about you for once?" Vanessa froze. She blinked, then forced a smile. "Of course, I didn't mean it like that." He didn't respond. Just grabbed his keys, checked his watch, and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he turned. "Don't wait up. If it goes well, Trevor and I might go out for drinks." And then he was gone. Vanessa sat there, the silence crashing down like a wave. The eggs on the stove were starting to burn. Later that night, she stayed by the window, watching headlights roll past. Midnight came and went. No sign of Derek. She didn't text, didn't call. She knew better by now. At 2:18 a.m., the door opened. Derek walked in, his tie loosened, his shirt wrinkled, and the smell of whiskey following him like a shadow. He looked straight at her, sitting there in the dark. He didn't smile. "You got it?" she asked softly, barely able to hide the hope in her voice. He paused, then gave her a slow, proud nod. "We got it," he said. Vanessa clapped her hands together. "Oh my God, Derek, baby, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you." He didn't hug her. Didn't even sit beside her. Instead, he walked past her to the kitchen and poured himself another drink. Vanessa followed with her eyes, her smiles slowly fading. "I knew you would. I always believed in you." He leaned against the counter and took a long sip. Then he looked at her. Really looked. And something in his eyes had changed. "You always believed in me," he said flatly. She nodded, confused. He chuckled bitterly. "Right. Because that's what I needed. Belief, not action." Vanessa blinked. "What does that mean?" Derek set the glass down and stepped closer, his tone colder now. "I needed a partner, Vanessa. Not someone stuck at home writing journals and dreaming about rehab centers." Her stomach twisted. "That's not fair. I've been there for everything. I gave up my boutique, my savings. I helped with your pitch decks, cooked for your meetings, and what did I get?" He snapped. "A wife who can't even stand next to me at the podium without a chair. Do you think that's the image I need right now?" The silence between them was sharp. Vanessa swallowed hard. "You don't mean that?" He laughed, "Don't I?" And with that, he walked upstairs and slammed the door shut. Vanessa sat there for a long time, hands trembling in her lap, wondering when the man she married disappeared. 3 days passed. The house got quieter, colder. Derek barely spoke to her except when he needed something. Calls from reporters started coming in. His face was on TV. Business websites were calling him a rising mogul. Lena sent Vanessa a text saying, "He's killing it. You must be so proud." Vanessa didn't reply. On Friday morning, Derek came down dressed in a new tailored suit. She complimented him, but he didn't respond. "Can we talk later?" she asked as he headed for the door. He paused. "I don't think so," he said. "I've got things to handle." "Derek, what's going on?" He turned, eyes sharp. "What's going on is I'm building an empire, Vanessa. And I don't need someone dragging me back to the past every time I try to move forward. I'm your wife for now." The door slammed behind him. That night, Vanessa cried herself to sleep. But the next night, the real storm hit. Vanessa woke up cold. Not because of the weather, but because the house felt empty. She looked around and noticed something strange. Derek's watch was gone from the nightstand, his suitcase, too. She glanced at the clock. 3:12 a.m. She rolled out of the bedroom and made her way to the front of the house. The hallway was dim, quiet. She turned the corner and stopped. Derek was standing near the door with Trevor. Both men had bags in hand. "Where are you going?" Vanessa asked, her voice still from sleep. Derek looked over his shoulder like she was an inconvenience. Trevor gave a low whistle. "Man, this is cold." Vanessa narrowed her eyes. "What's going on?" Derek sighed like he'd been forced into a conversation he didn't want to have. "Look, Vanessa, I wasn't planning to do it like this, but I've made a decision." "A decision about what?" "Us," he said. "This marriage, this situation." Vanessa froze. "You're joking." Derek stepped closer. "I'm not. I've carried this long enough. I have a future to build, and I don't need dead weight holding me down." Her heart slammed in her chest. "Dead weight?" "You heard me." Tears formed, but she held them back. I gave you everything, Derek. I stayed when no one else did. I fed you, funded you, protected your name, sacrificed my health and my business. He cut her off with a laugh. You did all that because you had nothing else. Don't paint it like some noble act, Vanessa's voice shook. I was your wife. You were my anchor, he spat. And not the kind that holds a ship steady. The kind that drowns it. Trevor shifted uncomfortably. Man, maybe you should shut up, Derek snapped, then turned back to Vanessa. You don't fit the life I'm building now. You don't belong in it. She shook her head, stunned. I stuck with you when no one believed in you. I even got injured saving you. And that's exactly the problem, he yelled, finally letting the mask drop. You used that accident to guilt me for years. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of you. She felt her throat tighten. What are you saying? He leaned in close, voice low and bitter. Look at you. Useless as a wife and worthless as a woman. Do you really think I'll drag you into my $200 million future? Vanessa's mouth fell open. The words knocked the air from her lungs. It felt like the floor had collapsed beneath her. If only she could stand on it. Trevor looked away. Even he couldn't pretend it wasn't too far. Derek turned and opened the door. Then, without warning, he grabbed the handles of her wheelchair and rolled her out onto the front porch. Derek, wait. What are you doing? You'll figure it out, he said coldly. He left her there. No shoes, no phone, no bag. Just the cold night air and the sound of the luxury door clicking shut behind her. She sat on the porch, trembling. Cars passed in the distance. Somewhere a dog barked. Her nightgown clung to her legs in the breeze, but her body was numb. How did it come to this? She had loved him truly, fiercely, and he threw her out like trash. Minutes passed, then hours. Her fingers went numb. Her eyes stared blankly at the street. And yet somewhere inside her, buried beneath the humiliation and pain, was a small flicker of something else. Not hope, not yet, but anger. The kind of anger that doesn't scream. The kind that waits. If you haven't subscribed yet, we'd love for you to join our community by hitting the subscribe button. Through our stories, we build hope and give a future to children and women who have been abused all over the world. Motivate us by subscribing and turning on your notification bell so you never miss a story that matters. Also, let us know in the comments where are you watching from and how did this story speak to you. The sky was just beginning to lighten when Vanessa finally blinked. She had sat on that porch the entire night, cold and motionless. Her back ached, her fingers were stiff. Her heart felt like it had stopped beating hours ago. Eventually, a neighbor, Mrs. Dawson, opened her door across the street. The older woman stared, eyes wide, but didn't say a word. She simply went back inside and closed her blinds. Vanessa laughed under her breath. A dry, bitter sound. By noon, a security guard arrived. I was told you're trespassing, he said, not unkindly. You'll need to leave. She didn't argue. She just asked for help down the steps. The man paused, then gently guided her down the stone path and out onto the sidewalk. That was how it began. 3 days later, Vanessa sat on a cot in a women's shelter. She hadn't eaten more than a granola bar. Her phone had been inside the house, gone now. Her wheelchair squeaked every time she moved. She didn't have money. She didn't have friends. And worst of all, she didn't have a voice. The internet had already chosen its side. Rising tech mogul Derek Miller files for divorce from ex-wife, citing toxic behavior. Sources say former wife emotionally manipulated him for years. A self-made man. From struggle to success, Derek Miller's journey inspires thousands. Vanessa stared at the headlines from a borrowed shelter laptop. Her stomach turned. She clicked on one article and there it was, a smiling photo of Derek with Lena beside him at some gala. The caption read, Derek Miller pictured with close business associate and friend Lena James. Lena, her best friend. Vanessa picked up the prepaid phone the shelter had given her and dialed Lena's number for the 5th time that day. Voicemail. She tried again. Nothing. That night, Vanessa sat alone by the vending machine, her body aching, her mind racing. A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. You're sitting like the world just ended. Vanessa turned. A tall woman in her early 40s with a warm but sharp face stood there holding a small coffee cup. Vanessa tried to smile. In some ways it did. The woman sat beside her. Monique, she said, holding out her hand. Been here a while. Got tired of pretending my life didn't fall apart. Now I help other women clean up the pieces. Vanessa shook her hand. Vanessa, you look like someone who gave her all to the wrong person. Vanessa laughed weakly. You read minds? I read faces. They sat in silence for a minute. Then, without knowing why, Vanessa told her everything about Derek, about the night he threw her out. About the lies, the betrayal, the media spin. Monique listened without interrupting. When Vanessa finished, she wiped her eyes and said, I must sound pathetic. No, Monique said softly. You sound like a woman who got used and tossed. That's not pathetic. That's painful. But pain doesn't make you weak. Staying down does. Later that week, Vanessa was in the shelter library scrolling through public property records, looking for any legal threads she might still be tied to. That's when she found something. The deed to the house she and Derek bought 5 years ago, but her name had been removed from the ownership months ago. Not recently, months ago. Her jaw tightened. She kept searching. Then she checked the board of directors' filings for their company, Mill-Etch Solutions. Again, her name had been removed, but this one had a digital signature she didn't recognize. Dated 6 months prior. Her hands shook. He had forged her signature. He had been planning this for a long time. That night, Vanessa sat alone in her cot, staring at the ceiling. Her vision blurred. Her chest hurt. Not from sadness, but from something else. A deep, creeping numbness in her arms. Her hands trembled more than usual. She went to the free clinic down the block the next morning. After a long set of questions and tests, the doctor sat down gently beside her. We're going to run more scans, but you're showing early signs of multiple sclerosis, he said. It may explain the numbness and fatigue. It's not related to the spinal injury. Vanessa didn't speak. She just nodded. It felt like another door had closed. She went back to the shelter in silence. Monique tried to talk to her that evening, but Vanessa barely responded. She couldn't stop thinking of the moment Derek left her in the cold. She couldn't stop hearing the words, "Do you really think I'll drag you into my $200 million future?" For a brief moment that night, Vanessa stared at the pills in her drawer. She thought about taking all of them, but something stopped her. A voice in her head. Not Derek's, not Lena's, her own. You didn't survive all that just to let them win. She closed the drawer and slept. For the first time in days. The next morning, Monique found Vanessa in the common room sipping instant coffee and staring out the dusty window. You didn't show up to breakfast, Monique said, sitting beside her. Vanessa didn't look away from the glass. Didn't feel hungry. Monique leaned back. You're not the only one here with a mountain on her back, you know, but some of us choose to climb it. Vanessa turned to her. Do you know what it feels like to give someone everything and they treat you like you're nothing? Monique smiled without joy. Yeah, I do. Vanessa sighed, then asked, why are you still here? Why haven't you left the shelter? Monique looked down. Because every time I try to leave, another woman like you walks in. And I remember that I still have a fight to finish. There was a pause. Then Vanessa whispered. He forged my name. Took me off the company. Off the house deed while I was still cooking him dinner. Monique blinked. You have proof. I do now. Monique straightened. Then it's not over. Over the next few days, Vanessa and Monique worked together. Vanessa couldn't afford a lawyer, but Monique wasn't just a volunteer. She used to be a paralegal for a corporate law firm before her life fell apart. She still remembered how to read contracts and navigate the system. Monique helped Vanessa file a quiet inquiry into the forged documents. She also helped her draft a request for full financial disclosure from Militech Solutions, the company Vanessa had helped build from her kitchen table. It was risky, but Vanessa had nothing left to lose. One afternoon, Monique brought in her old laptop and said, "Let's look into that $200 million contract." They spent hours digging through public documents, government press releases, and investor reports. At first, everything looked clean until Monique pulled up the contract filing with the State Procurement Board. There it was. Miller Solutions contract partner Derek Miller and Vanessa Miller. Vanessa's eyes widened. They used my name. Yep. Monique said, you were listed as co-founder. They pitched your backstory as part of the diversity and inclusion angle. It helped secure federal approval. Vanessa stared at the screen, but I was already out by then. They didn't tell the board that they needed your name for credibility. A black woman, disabled, with a business background. It made the proposal bulletproof. Her hands trembled. So, I was the face they used to get the deal and then tossed the moment it was signed. Vanessa's breath caught in her throat. He had used her not just emotionally, not just financially, legally, publicly, strategically. It wasn't a breakup. It was a full-blown con. That night, Vanessa sat outside the shelter on a bench under a flickering street light. Her body still hurt. The diagnosis still lingered like a storm cloud, but something in her chest had shifted. This wasn't just heartbreak anymore. It was war. Derek didn't just betray her. He committed fraud. He used her identity. He manipulated the system. And now she had proof. She would stay silent for now. But silence didn't mean surrender. 3 weeks passed. Vanessa no longer cried when she woke up. She didn't stare at the ceiling or check her reflection, hoping to find the woman she used to be. She had stopped looking backward. Now she was watching, calculating. Every night after dinner, Monique and Vanessa set up a small folding table in the back corner of the shelter's community room. The staff called it the war desk. Old newspapers, printouts, legal filings, and spreadsheets filled the table. We're not just going after him, Monique said one evening, tapping her pen. We're pulling the rug out from under him. Vanessa nodded quietly. No warning, just silence, then collapse. She had learned her lesson. Derek liked grand gestures. He liked drama, attention, and the sound of his own name in rooms where people wore suits. She, on the other hand, was building in the dark. Monique helped her file formal notices with the State Business Commission and the Federal Contract Office. Quietly challenging the use of her name on the $200 million contract. At the same time, they submitted an anonymous whistleblower report to a journalist Monique trusted, someone who specialized in tech fraud and shady deals. Within 2 weeks, small cracks began to show. A minor blog ran a story titled, "Who is the silent partner behind Militech's $200 million deal?" The article barely made a ripple, but it was enough. Vanessa wasn't trying to go viral. She was laying down sparks. Meanwhile, Monique arranged a meeting with someone she believed could help Vanessa truly rise. Thomas Harrove, a quiet but powerful investor known for backing companies that focused on innovation with a conscience. Vanessa was hesitant at first. I'm just a woman in a shelter. Why would he talk to me? Monique smirked. Because he used to buy candles from your boutique every Christmas. He still talks about your customer service and he hates frauds like Derek. The meeting was set at a small private office. Vanessa dressed in the only formal outfit she had left, an old navy blue blouse and a skirt Monique helped her hem. She used public transport and arrived early, heart pounding. Mr. Hargrove greeted her with a warm smile and firm handshake. He was in his late 50s, tall, and had that rare energy that made people quiet down when he entered a room. "I always wondered what happened to that little shop on Fifth," he said. "You used to write thank you notes in the bag." Vanessa smiled shyly. "I remember. I just liked making people feel seen." He nodded. "You did. That's rare. And I've heard quite a bit about what's happened to you. I'm sorry for what you've been through." "Thank you," she said quietly but firmly. "But I'm not here to be pitied. I'm here to build again." He leaned forward. "Tell me." And so she did. She spoke about her dream. A startup focused on adaptive tech for women with disabilities made by women who'd lived the struggle. Clothing, gear, digital platforms, even community spaces. Mr. Hargrove listened intently. He asked smart questions. He took notes. When she finished, he sat back. "I believe in you," he said. Vanessa blinked, stunned. "You do?" "Absolutely. And I think the world needs to hear you, but not yet. Let's move smart, not loud." He agreed to back the company quietly at first under his innovation brand. They would work behind the scenes. Soft launch, private investors, no press, no public face. Not yet. For the next 2 months, Vanessa worked with a small remote team assembled by Hargrove engineers, designers, advocates, all women, all with their own stories of being overlooked, underfunded, or discarded. They called the startup Rise Well. The logo, a simple phoenix in a wheelchair. Monique handled legal paperwork. Vanessa ran strategy. Slowly, they developed a wearable line of adaptive products, clothing, and devices designed not just for function, but for dignity. She didn't post on social media. She didn't speak to reporters. She simply worked and watched. At the same time, she continued dropping quiet matches near Derek's empire. She sent anonymous emails to former employees who were pushed out without severance. She forwarded suspicious vendor contracts to a regulatory compliance board. She leaked financial documents to tech watchdogs, highlighting potential misreporting. Derek didn't know where the heat was coming from. All he knew was that meetings were being cancelled. Questions were being asked. Investors were getting nervous. Then came Lena's downfall. Vanessa didn't plan it, but karma handled that part. An anonymous source, not Vanessa, leaked a private recording of Lena at a business dinner. In it, she laughed with 2 other board members and mimicked Vanessa's speech and posture, making cruel jokes about disabled people and mocking weak women who can't keep up. The video hit social media like wildfire. Within hours, the internet turned on Lena. Sponsors dropped her. Her speaking engagement at a Women in Tech event was cancelled midstream. Then came the bombshell. A financial audit exposed Lena for embezzling over $400,000 from a nonprofit initiative tied to Miller. She was arrested 2 days later. Vanessa watched the footage quietly on Monique's laptop. She didn't cheer. She didn't clap, but she did smile. For the first time in months. Derek Miller stood in his penthouse office staring at a spreadsheet that refused to make sense. Revenue projections had plummeted. 3 investors had pulled out within the last 2 weeks. A federal compliance officer had requested updated filings from the contract division. And earlier that morning, a headline popped up on his phone that made his stomach twist. Former board member raises red flag over Militech's inclusion claims. He hadn't even seen Vanessa in months. She had disappeared, gone silent, broken probably. That's what he assumed. But this felt targeted, calculated, like someone was slowly pulling every thread loose. Trevor knocked and stepped inside. His usual smug confidence now replaced with unease. IRS just sent another request. They want to see expense breakdowns for the first quarter through the third quarter, he said. Derek slammed his laptop shut. What the hell is happening? I don't know, man, but ever since Lena's arrest, the company's name is dirt. No one wants to touch us. Was a liability anyway. Derek muttered. You don't think she's the one talking to the feds now? Derek said nothing. He was too busy watching everything crumble. Meanwhile, across town, Vanessa sat in a quiet office lit by soft sunlight going over final designs for Risewell's soft launch. Your wearable chair harness idea is brilliant, one of the designers said. Stylish and supportive. No one's done it like this before. Vanessa smiled faintly. That's because no one asked women like us what we actually needed. She closed the laptop and checked her phone. A notification blinked from her anonymous alert account. Millet Tech flagged for internal audit. Federal contract suspended pending investigation. She didn't react, didn't cheer. She simply turned to Monique and said, "It's time." That same week, Vanessa received a formal invitation, a charity gala hosted by the State Innovation Board honoring leaders in ethical tech. The guest list included CEOs, senators, and the governor himself. She was shocked to see her name on the program. Keynote guest of honor, Vanessa Miller, founder of Risewell. Monique raised an eyebrow when Vanessa showed her. Think he'll be there? She asked. Vanessa didn't answer right away. Then she said, let's hope so. The night of the gala was electric. Cameras flashed. Reporters lined the entrance. Strings of fairy lights lit the outdoor venue as polished guests mingled with glasses of champagne. Derek arrived in a charcoal tuxedo, jaw tight, nerves wired. His company was bleeding and he needed to salvage his name, fast. Just smile and shake hands, Trevor whispered beside him. Get one photo with the governor and maybe they'll forget the audit. But as Derek stepped onto the red carpet and moved toward the center of the event, his face changed. He froze because there, standing at the top of the steps in a sleek black dress, her hair pinned up, her posture calm and poised, was Vanessa in a new wheelchair. One from her own company, custom-built, sleek, powerful. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was glowing. And seated next to her, the governor, laughing, smiling, leaning in as she spoke. A photographer captured the moment. Flash, then another flash. Then the announcer spoke over the speakers. Please welcome our keynote guest of honor, founder of Risewell, and a leader in the future of accessible tech, Vanessa Miller. Derek's jaw clenched. People turned and clapped. Some even stood. Vanessa took the mic with steady hands. She looked out into the crowd. Her eyes brushed over Derek without lingering. I used to think strength meant standing tall, she said into the mic. But now I know strength is building something when no one believes in you. It's surviving the fire and rising anyway. The room fell quiet. This company wasn't born out of ambition. It was born out of abandonment and pain and silence. But I used that silence. I made it speak. Applause broke out. Some guests cheered. Derek stood in the shadows, unable to move. Then came the final blow. A team of federal officers walked up the red carpet. They passed the guests, past the waiters, past the photographers, and stopped at Derek Miller. Mr. Miller, the lead agent said, we have a warrant for your arrest. Charges include fraud, forgery, and misappropriation of federal funds. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras turned. Flash. Flash, flash. Derek's eyes darted to Vanessa. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. She simply turned her chair and rolled inside the gala hall, surrounded by applause. 3 weeks after the gala, Derek Miller was living in a rundown apartment on the edge of the city. The once polished tech mogul now looked like a man who'd aged 10 years in a month. His expensive suits had been replaced by old hoodies. His name had become a punchline on news panels, late-night comedy shows, and Twitter hashtags. Derek the Deceiver, Ian Fake Founder, Ian Wife, he threw away. Every time he turned on the TV, it was there. Every time he opened his inbox, another lawsuit, his bank accounts were frozen. The feds had seized his cars. The penthouse was gone. Trevor had disappeared. Lena was still in jail. And the investors long gone. He had nothing worse than nothing. He had become a joke. He tried to call Vanessa, tried to email her, even messaged Risewell's press team posing as a concerned family friend. No response. He didn't even get blocked. He was just ignored. That silence hit harder than handcuffs. Then one morning, Derek saw the announcement on a local news channel. Grand opening Risewell Wellness Center, a state-of-the-art rehab facility for women with physical disabilities. He sat up straight, eyes fixed on the screen. There she was, Vanessa, wearing a white blazer, her hair in soft curls, confident, radiant, powerful, smiling, and surrounded by community leaders, doctors, and press. The same woman he threw onto a sidewalk in her nightgown. The same woman he told was useless and a burden. Now she was ribbon-cutting the future. Something inside him cracked. He stood up, grabbed his jacket, and stormed out the door. It was raining when he arrived at the Risewell Center. He didn't bother with an appointment. He pushed past the front desk, his voice shaky. "I need to see her. Please," he begged. Just 5 minutes, security began approaching. Then from behind the glass walls, Vanessa looked up. She saw him. She didn't flinch. Instead, she motioned to her assistant and said calmly, "Let him in." Derek was escorted into a private lounge area, warm, calm, filled with sunlight and soft music. She was already waiting, seated with a cup of tea. There was no rage in her eyes, no hatred, just clarity. He dropped to his knees beside her wheelchair, soaked from the rain. "Vanessa," he said, his voice breaking. I was wrong. Everything I said, everything I did. Please, I didn't mean it." She tilted her head. "Yes, you did. You meant every word." "No, I didn't. I was confused. I got caught up in the money, the power." "You meant it," she said again, firmer this time. "Because I remember every second of it, every word you said when you rolled me into the cold." He choked back a sob. "I lost everything." She stared at him. "No," she said quietly. "You threw everything away." He reached for her hand, but she moved it to her lap. "I have nothing left," he whispered. "Please, just help me fix this." Vanessa looked at him for a long moment, then she nodded. "All right," she said. She rolled to a small desk in the corner and opened a folder. Derek looked hopeful until she turned back to him and placed 3 things in front of him on the table. 1. An audio recording, his voice full of venom, calling her a burden. 2. A forged signature form, the document he used to remove her from the company. 3. A flash drive with footage of him admitting in a video call that her name helped seal the $200 million contract. His eyes widened. "What is this?" She sipped her tea. "Proof," he stood up. "You set me up." "No," she said calmly. "You set yourself up. I just saved the receipts." Derek started pacing. "You can't send this out. Vanessa, please." "If this goes public, it won't," she interrupted. He stopped. "It already has." The door opened. Security stepped in. And just behind them, 2 federal agents. "Mr. Miller," one of them said, "you are under arrest for fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement." "No, no, no. Wait, Vanessa, Please, he cried out as the agents cuffed him. But she didn't move. Didn't speak. As he was dragged out crying and begging, the flash of paparazzi cameras filled the front steps. Reporters shouted questions and Vanessa, she simply turned her chair back toward the launch event, graceful, calm, and unbothered. Inside the Risewell Center, guests were still gathered in the main hall, community leaders, journalists, patients, and supporters, all waiting for Vanessa's keynote speech. She adjusted the mic at the podium as the audience settled. The room fell into respectful silence. Outside, reporters were still shouting as Derek was placed in the back of a federal vehicle. Inside, Vanessa Miller began to speak. "Thank you for being here today," she said, her voice steady, strong. "This center was built for women who were told they weren't enough. Too broken, too slow, too inconvenient." She paused, letting her eyes move across the crowd. "I was once told that I was useless, that I was a burden, that no man would ever take me into his future." A few heads turned. Some guests already knew what had just happened outside. "But I learned something," she continued. "Pain doesn't make you weak. Being discarded doesn't make you worthless. It simply forces you to find strength in silence." Soft applause followed. This center is not just a rehab facility. It's a place of return for women to return to themselves, to their purpose, to their voice. She took a breath, then smiled. "And I want to share one more thing." She glanced to the side of the stage where her doctor stood, nodding supportively. "I've been accepted into an experimental treatment program," Vanessa said, her eyes glistening. "There's a real chance I may walk again someday." The room erupted in applause. Monique, standing at the back, wiped a tear from her cheek. Vanessa waited until the clapping settled. Then she leaned forward slightly, closing with quiet intensity. "Sometimes the people who discard you will one day kneel where they once stood. Let them." That night, Vanessa walked through the quiet halls of the center. She built, wheels gliding softly on polished floors. The noise had faded. The press had gone home. The lights were dimmed. She rolled to the main lobby and looked out through the glass doors. Beyond them, the city still moved. But in here, it was still safe, hers. She wasn't broken. She wasn't begging. She was becoming. And this time, she was building a future no one could take from her.